Okay, hello, welcome. Regex is hard. Replace a lot of stuff with easy. I'm not even going to bother to read it because it doesn't make sense, right? Before we get going, huge thanks to our sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't be here. Thank you for helping us out. Go to their booths, get their stuff, and buy their products, please. My name is Björn Sundling. I am an Azure and a DevOps consultant at Advania Sweden. You can find me on the internet, on GitHub and Mastodon and my webpage. I do MVP stuff and MCT stuff and certification stuff and other cool stuff. And I do kind of love Regex in a sort of quirky way. But before we start to talk about this, I have a confession. This is actually not the session I was supposed to write, or that I started out writing. Because when I started writing this about Regex, and was like, oh, we're going to learn a bit about patterns and how to combine them and what so and so on. But the more I sort of went on with this session, the more I realized that that's not the session I want to give, because it doesn't really make sense. Because Regex is really hard. Literally really hard. This is actually valid Regex patterns. Can someone explain it to me? Yep.
I'll do it later.
This is a valid Regex pattern, finding three integers and will return true if the first one plus the second one equals the third one. And it works really well, but it's not really understandable, right? So I thought, let's do something a wee bit different than what I expected. In PowerShell, we have four main ways of using Regex. We can use it in parameter validation. We can use it in select string, one of my favorite commandlets. We can use the operators, replace, match, and split. They all accept Regex. And we can use the Regex Type Accelerator. So I thought, you know what? We're going to go through all of these and see instead, how can we make it easier to do Regex instead of just remembering patterns, because remembering patterns doesn't make sense. And so that's enough of the presentation. So before we get going, everyone could at least read the one or understand what the purpose of the one we showed or the title was. Naturally, it will be Regex is easy because we have any word characters followed by the exclamation mark. This is a positive look behind. It says that we will only capture word characters if there's an exclamation mark after, and we will replace it with easy. It's a good and quirky way of doing this. But there are a lot of cool other things we can do. So we can do stuff like we did in the beginning. Capture all word characters. I hope, by the way, if anyone can't see, please let me know. I don't know how much more I can zoom without the demos just being blobby, but I will try. Oh, that one. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah. So we can do simple stuff like, capture every word character or capture every digit, or, so we have to select string also accepts on all matches, so we can do capture everything, matches white space, and so on and so forth. We can also do grouping and say, okay, capture word characters, and then we add a /1, which means capture only if there's two, like the one capture group before, and add that one more, which means we only get the double character, so LL and TT in my little string down here. There are a couple of quirks in PowerShell, in languages in general, actually. So if we do like /r, which means carriage return, and we look at the result, well, the first line will be hello PSConfEU 2024. The second line will start with a new line. This is simply because PowerShell uses /r/n. So we can also do /new line like this, and it will look the same in the first line and different in the second line. So we have only one line, and we can, of course, combine them and do stuff like this, and it will look kind of the same. One common pattern that we stumble upon is this one, A to Z and A to C. everything between A and Z or Z, depending on where you're from, does something like this. Now, at least some of us are European here, or somewhat European, or some of us use weird characters in our names. I don't know, pick one. And it would be quite easy to just do, we can do A to Ö instead, because in the Swedish alphabet, that's the last one. So we can do, So we would be able to do this, and, well, it kind of works, but we also get the tilde, because Regex uses ASCII index numbers, which means between Z and Ö, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. But the interesting thing, like I said, I don't want to stand here and just talk about patterns, because it doesn't make sense. So the interesting thing is, how do we know all this? Well, quite frankly, I don't. Instead, we use tools like this. Cheating tools. Whenever we can, use cheating tools. So we can do, and of course it messes up the text, because apparently text is hard. But we can do the same patterns like here. And we can see what matches. And we can immediately get the feedback of it. We also have the help documentation. So in fact, I have a... Yeah, sure, sir. In fact, when I wrote the title here, I went to exactly this page and went, hey, down in the right corner, positive, look. And we have this. And now I'm actually going to zoom out a bit. Oh, wait, can probably do this. So we even have examples, like how this uses, how it's used, and how we use it. Because, like I said, it doesn't make sense to just remember all patterns. There are more pages. Regex 101 is my favorite, but you have Regexer, and there's a lot of other. But use them, because it doesn't make sense to try to remember. And when these don't do, there's actually, let's see if we can find the correct one. The official Learn documentation, always good. They actually have a lot of good documentation on how it works, and it's searchable and so on and so forth. So instead of trying to remember everything, you just use the tools available. Cheat. We all love to cheat. And most commonly, we actually do have access to the internet. But again, this is about making it readable. So the first thing I want to show you, and one of the most underused Regex tricks, you can use comments. We have comments in PowerShell, like do a hashtag thingy and comments. Pretty much the same works. So we can do parentheses, question marks, hashtag, and we can have comments in our Regex. So this one, I showed you before, we have the capture group word character, and this will return double characters, right? Well, this one will return the same thing, except this time we have a comment saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. Which kind of makes sense, because Regex isn't really readable, so we can make it a bit more readable. We can do this using the question mark X operator as well. This is a bit quirkier, because question mark X in a grouping is basically saying ignore white space, which means if you want to capture white space using this one, you have to also add the white space. You can't just type a space and expect it to be captured. I will actually show a bit more of this later. But this does the exact same thing, but we don't have to do parentheses. Now, everything after a hashtag is a comment, even if I put a pattern in here. So if I do, something like this, this is also a comment. This is part of the comment. It will return the same thing. So this one, the question mark X, alters the capture behavior, but still you can use comments in it. Cool stuff, right? Yes. Another sort of common trick that people tend to forget, is that Regex also supports Unicode categories. When we do this A to C, or capture everything between, or capture alphabetic stuff, as an American, someone who has A's, it makes sense, but like I said, most of us here are not American. So we have Unicode patterns like basic Latin. And it works quite well. It actually excludes everything that isn't included in the basic Latin Unicode category. We can do everything that is Greek characters, the alpha and the omega character. Those are Greek characters. we can do Latin 1 supplements. And suddenly, hey, I get to have a name. Yay, thank you. And there are a lot of documentations around this. So we have the official Microsoft documentation again. It actually has the, let's pick the right one. There's the Unicode categories listed in here. And there's a lot of them. We can do all kinds of cool stuff.
Is there one for each of the Nordic countries?
Not specific, because the countries aren't really Unicode. Unicode is more groupings of characters. But there are a lot of these lists that sort of tells you what's included in them. Some alphabets have their own because they are very specific alphabets. But for Nordic countries, I would say go with Latin 1 and Latin 1 supplement. Because, of course, you can combine this and say anything. We're actually going to look at this right now because we're going to look at a Turkish example. The Turkish are notoriously hard because they have 4 different I's. Not 4 I's, 4 cat letter, yeah. So they have the I, and then they have the dotless I, and then they have the lowercase I, and then the lowercase dotless I, which, well, they are notorious. It's actually termed the Turkish I tests, like, yeah. So instead of trying to sort of figure out which of these characters are Turkish, we can actually do, capture is Latin 1 supplement and Latin 1 extended A. And congratulations, we now know how Turkish looks, which is really, really good. We can even do stuff like, I'm going to try to remember to clear my screen every now and then, but if I do and it looks, or don't, and it looks too weird, tell me. We can even do stuff like, hey, is there any maths in here? Yeah, tilde is a math character, so yeah. Unicode categories are highly underrated, really useful. And we can actually use PowerShell to sort of cheat our way. It's not perfect, but in the char class, there's also actually a type or a method, get Unicode category, that we can use to sort of see, we have math character. We have, no, definitely not. We have space characters. We have punctuation characters. So this would actually give us a hint of sort of where to look and what we're looking at. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell us which Unicode category, as in language, we're in. Okay. In fact, the character class does do a lot of cool stuff, so we can often supplement or even replace regex with it. So we can do, is ledger or digit works. It often is quite more readable than, trying to figure out a regex pattern to find everything that is a pattern or digit. So this is really, really good stuff. Okay. Some general patterns, general cool stuff that we can do. Spelling is not one of them. Like I said, we're going to look at the different ways of implementing this in PowerShell and sort of the tips and tricks to make regex understandable. And I have here a very short example of a function. It simply takes 2 parameters, and these both are taken from my own code. So if they're ugly, accept it. It's what I do. I have a Azure DevOps descriptor and a URL. Basically, the way to use it is to use the validate pattern accelerator or decorator, I don't know the word, and just give a regex pattern like this. So the ADO, Azure DevOps descriptor, contains of between 3 to 5 characters and then a dot, and then somewhere above 40 characters of A to Z and 0 to 9. And this works. It works quite well, actually. So let's create a function. Let's run it. Now, if you're not familiar with this terminology, this basically means we're going to create a string abc dot and then 40 ace. So it looks like this. And it works really well. The problem with validate pattern isn't really the descriptor, the pattern. The problem is this. Oh, come on. Thank you. The error messages when you use a validate pattern are absolutely disgusting, because if I would give this to a client, they would go, what? I have no idea what that means. So the first sort of thing we need to remember when we do this I don't know when this was implemented, but it's quite a long time ago. We have in all our validation decorators, we have an error message that we can use. And by simply adding this, we change the output of the regex error message to not show the regex and say, hey, this is what we're actually going to do. This is what we're looking for. So when using the validate pattern one, do use the error message, because if I find one, this doesn't match the pattern, I will probably spend more time trying to figure out the pattern than actually repairing the script. And I forgot to start my timer. Thank you. But there's another one here. We are validating HTTP or HTTPS on our URL. So, well, it has the same issue, same patterns. You have to start with this pattern, right? That's good. We already know how to fix this, right? By not typing. But, you know what? The best regex tip I can give someone, and I fell for this trap myself, because I do like regex, and I find it fun, I find it interesting language. But the best tip I can ever give anyone is don't use it. Regex has this weird thing, like, you know the saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything you look at is a nail. You got to remember that regex is a great pattern, but for very specific things. So in this case, you know what? We can actually just use the string and see if it starts with whatever you input. Look if it starts with HTTP. It does the same validation. And in this case, we could also use typecasting and say, hey, cast it to a URI, because then we can compare it to whatever data we want to and do what a URL wants to do. And suddenly, well, we have the error. We can still see that it needs to start with this one, but it still works, and it's kind of more beautiful. So, parameter validation, do use error message if you have to use regex, but remember, you don't often have to. In fact, the char class that we just looked at can do a lot of the simpler validation stuff for you. So use that one and validate script. It's probably easier to read for the person you leave the code to after you leave. That's the first one. Next up, like I said, we're going to go through more or less every single way we can run PowerShell. So next up, we're going to look at select string. And this is actually one of my absolute favorite commandlets. It's so good. We have a standard pattern. And as you can see, we start with a question mark X, because this allows us to do new lines and indentions. So suddenly we can actually write it a bit more readable when we write our patterns. And we can say, hey, the first line will match any word character 2 or more times. The second time is a negative look ahead. So it's not going to be followed by anything other than white space. And of course, we need to press F8. Come on. There we go. And like I said, 2 or more word characters. Hello, 2 or more. And it cannot be followed by anything but a white space. So hello is followed by white space. This pattern works absolutely flawless, but instead of just having some twiggly bits, we have some comments in it. We can also, in select string, use the all matches parameter. And suddenly we get, ta-da, all matches. And we can also see here that it works because, well, it is 2 or more characters, but the IT part is not followed by a space character, so the pattern works as behaved. Awesome. Look, I've even had some clear host inserted here. But the cool thing about select string, and why I absolutely love it, is because it can do file searching. So I actually have to open this one now. I have a folder with a couple of actual, real, super true log files, I promise. And I can just do, get child item in that folder, pipe it to select string, and find the error I want. And there's quite a few errors in there. And this is really powerful when it goes to stuff like log searching. We can even do context. So bit of magic because I don't want too much text on my screen. But now, we have a small bracket or pointer at the beginning. This is the actual line that matches it. And we have 3 lines before and 3 lines after because I said context. So we can get the context of the message, the data, the error message. We also have, of course, in the beginning, we have which file it is, which line it is, and so on and so forth. It's really useful if you've ever worked with, for example, Tomcat logs, because Tomcat has a fantastic idea, or it used to have the great idea of throwing out like 2 billion log files. It's like, there's an error, find it in the log file. Okay. Select string, brilliant. Now, you can even go all in and go all out and build like insane patterns like this. And you can end up with a secret scanner. I published a secret scanner like 2 years ago that simply scans your code for secrets, and you can run it and sell. It will tell you, okay, have you checked in, or have you published some kind of password in your code? And it will fail if so, and so on. And it's really, really good. And it's based simply on this. That's basically the whole module. Select string and a pattern. It's really good. Sorry?
I was wondering if you could zoom that last one.
Sure, sorry. Yeah, so zoom in was the thing. Nope, apparently I can't. Where are we? There we go. Somewhere around here. There. There we go. So basically, it's just select string doing a lot of pattern scanning. But if you're kind of I've gone blank the word. You may see that it actually does the whole for each loops somewhere up here, and it loops through all this code and every single pattern. We will get back to this why later. So basically, the whole module, or the whole find secret thing, is based on OWASP modules, because they write Python, I don't, and I thought we needed a good secret scanner in PowerShell, so I stole their module, rewrote it. Now, like I said, I use this often for log searching, and when I do this with colleagues, they don't really like Regex the way I do. So instead, we often break it down. Say, hey, give us the patterns, whatever it is you're looking for. Errors or warnings or verbose or debug. Just input them all. And we have the OR character. So just as we have -OR in PowerShell, pipeline in Regex means OR. And we can just do this instead and say, hey, just combine all of these patterns into one. And suddenly, well, we search for debug messages. We search for, I promise there are error messages up here, somewhere, coming there slowly. No, not this time either. Yeah. Okay, somewhere in here, I promise there are error messages as well.
But what's in the variable in 49?
Let's just do this first. Eventually, I'm going to have as many aliases for clear as humanly possible. So basically, we just say import whatever you want and combine them by a pipeline. This also means that if you deliver this as a function, you can actually use select string for log searching and deliver a function that just accepts a string array, like input one or more strings that you need to search for, and we can exploit this, just the OR character. Exploit use. Of course, we can also do this using a bit more advanced functions or advanced patterns. So we can say, you know what, let's find PS, whatever character, one or more, ends with a U. And then we want an I that isn't followed by a T. And then we want an S that isn't whatever by a backtick, and then we have G, and then the characters between A and R, 3 exactly, and T, and so on and so forth. So we can do quite like normal advanced character regex pattern matching as well. And, well, it works the same way. So remember, if you can do regex, you can actually do the same thing and input all kinds of cool stuff. Like I said, there's a for each loop in the find secret, and there's a reason for it. When you start to look at advanced patterns in regex, and especially when you add look behinds or look behinds or look aheads and or patterns, it quickly gets slow. And the fact of the matter is, if you combine too many patterns and make a pattern too advanced, select string, or actually the entire regex engine in PowerShell, is so blazingly fast that it's better to do 100 searches with small patterns than one search with a big pattern. Although, if we do it the simple way, or, just do one search for all of the patterns with an OR, well, the result in this case, PSConfEU IS greatest, great. But we only get one hit on the middle, so because it's an OR match. So we only get one hit on the middle row, so to say. Whereas if we do a for each, we have the I and the S on different rows. So just remember behavior in this. If you loop through a pattern like this, or if you do it in one row, behavior may differ, but in fact, as soon as you go overhead with large advanced patterns, the for each loop is faster. I tried to, as part of the research for this, or the writing of this, I sent to Christian, who did a parallelization. I sent the find secret module to him, and he was like, I can do this better by parallelization, no problem. And he came back 1 week later and was like, holy damn, the regex engine is fast. Yeah, so for each loops and small searches. Awesome, select string, my favorite commandlet. Onwards and upwards. Any questions so far? Everyone's so silent. Good, I thought I lost. So, yeah. Like I said, we have a couple of operators that we can use, the replace, the match, and the split. Let's start with a string, as always, because it's easiest to read. And we can do stuff like, split on, in this case, digits and spaces and the dash 2 or more, which means we will split on the entire string this. We can also do match and say, hey, does the string match this pattern? And it does. PSConfEU space 1 or more, 20 is the first 2 digits, 20 literal, and then digits, 2 digits, any 2 digits. And it does. We also have the replace that can replace either with nothing and just say, hey, replace white space and any number of digits with, well, nothing, and we remove them. So it can be used as a version of trim as well. Or we can do replace with, come on, replace with another string. It's quite simple, quite logical. They do exactly what they want, what you want, and what you expect from them. But one of the quirkier things in PowerShell, that I find at least, and especially if you're coming from a different language, is that PowerShell is by default case insensitive, right? Most of us are quite common to this by now. Regex is by default not. So that's why when you start to use this search or pattern searches or Google searches, even when you use the Regex pattern helper, Regex 101 and stuff, so the recommended pattern for searching for everything between A and Z is lowercase a and Z and capital A and Z. But in our world, that doesn't matter. it still works, even though PSConfEU in lowercase characters is actually not the same as PSConfEU in uppercase characters. But we can change this behavior if we use the C match or this -C whatever operator we want. And suddenly it actually behaves the way the regex people or other languages would expect it to. So you do C match or C replace or so on. So we can do the same with replace. And normal replace, well, it will work. The weirdness of regex will replace and everything will work. But if we do C replace, it will not. And this is kind of, well, at least I do some training. Whenever you do training with other language people, they're always like, why isn't this? That's because, yeah. Now the match is a bit of a different beast. Because when you do it, when you run the match or the C match operator, you also get the matches one. And the matches variable is an automatic variable filled by the match operator that contains, well, the actual pattern that we matched. So in this case, the pattern says P or capital P, word characters, one or more, anything in a word, and it should end with a U. And PSConfEU, well, matches the pattern, so we have a capture. And the matches contains it. We can also do capture groups. So this is where we sort of stumble into a bit more advanced. If you do a parenthesis around a capture or a pattern, it becomes a capture group. So the pattern P/W plus U, well, it's the same as up here. We also have the digits, capture anything in a group with any digits in a capture group, surrounded by anything, and in between there's one or more white spaces. So if we do this, suddenly we have our capture groups. So the first capture group would be PSConfEU, the second capture group would be 2024, and it's 0 indexed, so the actual complete the first capture group, which is this is the actual capture, is the entire string. And so why does this matter? Well, it matters when we look at replace instead. Because you can use these capture groups and replace stuff with them. So you can do, okay, let's do the same capture group again. We have 3 captures. Again, you can look at it if you want to. Hello, PSConfEU, PSConfEU, and 2024. And we can use $1 and $2 to say, hey, replace it with the capture group 1 and capture group 2. So we can do PSConfEU, capture group 1, 2024 is awesome. This is really, really cool stuff when you start to do advanced or more replace patterns. It's super powerful. But when we do, remember that PowerShell likes $signs. So the quotation marks becomes incredibly important. Because if we would do the exact same thing but double quotation marks, well, there is nothing, because PowerShell will, PowerShell will interpret these ones as normal variables. So replace is really, really good. We can also do named capture groups. So instead of just parentheses like this and $1 and $2, we can add parentheses, question mark, and I can never remember which is less than and which is greater than. So let's just say less than, greater than, and give it a name. And the name, instead of having just $1 or $2, it will now grant this a name. So we can have conference, or we can have year. And, let's look at this one first. So now we have 0, which is still the 0 index because I didn't give the entire capture a name. And then we have year because, well, the year is a capture. And then we have conference. And now it doesn't even matter in which order we write it. We can just do, hey, replace it with conference like this. You have to remember the, whatever these are called. Curly brackets, thank you. My English is somewhere in yesterday. But now we can do name capture groups instead. Really useful, and it makes it even more easy to read and understand the code. Because we know now already, before we know what's in the operator string, we can now see, oh, we're expecting something that's a conference in here, and we're expecting something that's here in here. So again, making it simpler, making it a bit more understandable or readable for the poor bastard left behind. Now there are other cool features as well in here. So for example, replace. I did not know this until I started reading up on it. Replace actually accepts script blocks. So no, next year I just have to go through my entire presentation and do this. And suddenly we have PSConfEU 2025, thank you. I'm lazy. No, I find this really useful actually. I already used it a couple of times, but I just discovered a couple of weeks ago. Match, we can use it as a filter, also one of those weird quirks. So if we say PowerShell, Python, Perl, and JavaScript, just give me those that starts with a P, well, PowerShell, Python, and Perl. So we can use it as a filter as well. Kind of cool, I think. Just stuff I wanted to add because I found them interesting when I did the research. So we have gone through parameter validation, select string, replace, and match. It's time to look at the beast that is Type Accelerator. Because all of this, every single function, comparison operator, whatever it is based on the Regex Type Accelerator. It's sort of the beast behind the magic. And you can use this, of course, as well. It behaves kind of the same, but outputs kind of different. So if you just do the regex, that's the type accelerator, and then we do match, and we say the string, or whatever we want to find the pattern is, and the pattern we want to search for. So in this case, search for PSConfEU. Well, we can see that it's success true. So basically, this is what match does, looks at this flag. We can see the value, which is the matches part, or the select string part. We can also see the index and length, which again goes to select string and where do we start and where do we go. So all of the data is in here, and all of the results from the other ones, the other thing, ways of use. Well, you know what I mean.
This seems more readable to me.
Sorry?
It seems more readable to me.
It is me. I don't know, I use it quite a lot, but we're coming to one of the weird quirks in this one as well. In fact, it has all of the properties, like I said, the captures, the index, the groups, whatever. It's all this data that the other functionality needs is actually coming from this one. We also have, apart from match, we can do matches. So remember we did the select string with all matches. Now, if someone is really, really good at peeking stuff, we can count how many E's we have here. And count how many E's we have here. Because when you use the Regex Type Accelerator, well, all of a sudden, we're case sensitive, because why the hell not? We can look at this from this view. So if we look at E, let's do this. If we use the count method, we can, we have 5 lowercase e's, and we have 2 uppercase e's in our little string up here. So yes, count them both. We have 7, makes sense. I'm not going to do that one. We can also do the same if we look at the difference of, get the same result if we look at the difference between using, for example, select string and the Regex Type Accelerator. So if we look at this one, if we just say this is the capture group, or this capture will say everything that's an uppercase letter. Capture everything that's uppercase. And using the regex matches, it will give us obscure. Whereas, well, using select string, it will tell us, well, everything is uppercase. Same goes for the operators. Well, if we do replace, turns out if we replace all uppercase characters with a snobbelow, well, everything is uppercase, and same goes here. We only replace the uppercase. So when you use the Regex Type Accelerator, remember we are capitalization matters all of a sudden. And that's for those of us who are actual PowerShell developers with not a background in anything else, may actually be quite weird. I stumble upon this every single time I use the accelerator and go like, why is this? Oh, yeah. Okay. There's a lot of other cool stuff we can do with it. So, like I showed you, we have count. Just how many of these do we do? We have match and matches. We can do new patterns. We can do other stuff. There are some of these that you should recommend. A session from Matthias Jessen. He did at PSD Switzerland, on Regex as, I don't remember the title. It was absolutely brilliant. Go watch it if you're curious about what all of these methods do and so on. Really good. But again, this is Regex made easy was the whole goal and what I want to show. So we're going to look at one specific member of the Regex accelerator. And that is something we also stumble upon quite often. We have paths. This is Windows paths. Some of us use Linux, some of us use whatever. But in Windows, we have paths. Now, the problem with this, if you know Regex, you already know. If we do just, are they equal? Well, they are. They look the same. But if we do Regex match and say, hey, do they match each other? No, they don't. Because, well, for example, backslash is the Regex character. This means that we will try to use this and escape and see, hey, we're going to look for /t, which, if I am not wrong, is tabs. I don't remember something. And we also have a dot in our little path here. Dot mean, oh, come on. Dot means everything. So there's a couple of Regex patterns included in this string. So what we can do is use the Regex Escape method. This is one of the most useful things I use in this because it escapes everything that's Regex pattern and makes sure that whatever you input is pure text according to the Regex engine. So if we take this pattern and we run it through the Regex Escape and we look at it, and suddenly we have double slashes because we escape the slashes, and we have /dot because we escape the dot. Now, we started out with me saying use Regex 101. The reason is, of course, because I don't remember any patterns. Why should I? There are engines that do it for me. This also means that when I want to run a perfect or exact match, I don't remember everything. So I need to do the Regex Escape because I can't escape everything manually. Regex Escape is good stuff. We can also do Regex options, but we're kind of running out of time, so I'm not going to demo that one. If you're curious about Regex options, well, come ask me afterwards. And that's actually it for my demos. So, to iterate, use the tools available. They are good. And they are way better than trying to remember patterns. Remembering stuff is bad for you. We have enough stuff going on up here anyway. Use comments in Regex. One of the most underrated Regex features, and very few even seem to know that they exist. But they do, and they are really good. And use standard Unicode groups, unless you really want to figure out what it is you're trying to find. They are really useful. Sorry. Good, do this. Use error message. When you do parameter validation, use error messages. Do use error messages. I will give you a light but friendly pet in the face if you don't. And remember, Regex, it's easy to have a hammer. It's not. Typecasting works better times. And remember to not use Regex just because you can. Select string, file searching. Absolutely magic. I love it. And we use the OR because it makes sense for end users that do the searching to not have to remember patterns. Just say whatever you want, match it, or group it using an OR and so on. And simple patterns are often faster. So if you go too advanced, it can get inherently slower to the point of disaster. The operators, use C to make them case sensitive, because for some of us that actually makes more sense than non-case sensitive capture groups, and even better, named capture groups. And yeah, cool stuff. Match can be used as a filter. You can do replacement with the whatever it's called. I forgot the name. Blank out. Thank you. Finally, the Regex Type Accelerator, the back end of them all. It can do everything the rest of them can, and even more stuff, but it is case sensitive, and Regex Escape is your friend to use it when you want to do perfect matching. Because Regex is hard. And like I said, I set out to make this session on Regex, but I really can't make it easy. The title lied. There's no way of making Regex easy. But we can make it understandable, at least. Somewhat more readable for the poor bastard that takes over our job when we leave. And with that, I thank you all. We don't have much time, but no one is complaining. So if you have any questions, either scream them now or I'll capture them. Yeah.
I'm not even going to say, at least with Regex static class, there isn't Regex options to make it case insensitive.
Yeah, I had a demo, but yeah. So the comment was, in the Regex class, there is an option, a Regex option to make it case insensitive. And that is absolutely true. We can actually do this. It looks like... no, that's ignore pattern wise case. Okay, so you can do Regex like this and add the class and say make it case insensitive as well. But yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Have a great day.